It is an honor to have been invited here as your keynote speaker for such an auspicious occasion. At the same time, distinguished guests, distinguished members of the bar, I must tell you that this is the first time in my life, in my professional career, that I literally ask myself, why me? I am not a lawyer, notwithstanding the fact that, as you heard, I completed the first year the law school under some of Liberia's most erudite professors, such as the late Toy Bernard, Tuan Red, current Associate Justice Banks of the Supreme Court, and Sipa Mabande, amongst others. Not being a lawyer, I therefore consulted quite broadly before I accepted this invitation. From amongst my professional colleagues, the legal profession, amongst the Liberian Female Women Lawyers Association, who all encouraged me to accept this invitation, though I kept maintaining, but I'm not a lawyer. But they came back to me and said, but it's okay. They know that you are not a lawyer. It's okay. Let me add, for all of you who may not know me, neither am I a politician. I'm a first-class international development professional, a patriot of the highest order, very action-oriented, with little patience for mediocrity. Little patience for mediocrity. That means the Liberian way, which accepts mediocrity, is a no-no for me. You will therefore hear in my discussion and in some of my recommendations, you will see what I'm saying. This is why I'm situating here at the beginning. And so I find myself addressing this distinguished gathering. In so doing, I have benefited from contributions resulting from consultations as far afield as the World Bank, Liberian lawyers in the diaspora, such as Councillor A.B. Clark, Edward Nouvel, Liberia's former CID Deputy Director, Mr. Charles Ebuki, who, if any of you remember him, was strong on the rule of law in his profession, and was able to give him some insights on how we have proceeded in the past. I've also benefited from insights from the Canadian pro bono lawyer Jim Dubé, who provided assistance to the Minister of Justice over the years. Also Councillor Stephen Cooper, Councillor Musa Chesson, as well as discussions with Her Honor, Judge Eva Mappe, Councillor Bima Lasana, Councillor Joyce Woods, who provided me some insights into the Liberian National Bar Association activities. Lastly, given the subject on which I have been invited to speak, investing in the rule of law, I met with UNMIL for some perspectives on their extraordinary support to the government of Liberia under former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Vice President Joseph Yuma Bokai's administration in preserving the peace over the past 12 to 15 years, which was underpinned by what was clearly investment in the rule of law that has brought us to where we are today. We have to acknowledge the contribution of the past. We tend in Liberia not to do that. And this is unfortunate, because we've got to build on the past and the achievements of the past, notwithstanding whatever shortcomings. So let me begin by adding my voice to the many over the past weeks or so in expressing our gratitude to UNMIL as the mission terminates its assignment here. Both government and civil society have given its praise, to which we can only add ours, as we have earlier in their support to the work of the Angie Brooks International Center for Women's Empowerment, Leadership Development, International Peace and Security. in our role in the just ended legislative and presidential elections. On behalf of the establishment coordinator, Councillor Yvette Chesson-Roy, who has been in Sierra Leone providing support with other distinguished women from Liberia and elsewhere on the continent to support the elections through the Women's Situation Room processes. And some of them are here who participated. We have Elizabeth Wanga from Uganda, who is here. And we have our own Liberian female women lawyers who are part of the Women's Situation Room in Sierra Leone. We have two of you here, I think Councillor Pearl Bull and one other, the head of the Women's Lawyers Association. Is she here? Okay. Basically, you had Liberian women joining with other African women, participating and contributing to the electoral process in Sierra Leone, which is undergoing a rough time. Councillor Chesson-Roy is still there, and her Honor Chinere Hesse from Ghana is there with other women. Now, so on behalf of Councillor and myself, I want to say to O'Neill, thank you, and in our Liberian parlance, thank you plenty, plenty, plenty. For those who may not know, the center is named in honor of Liberia's late permanent representative to the United Nations in the 60s, Angie Brooks, amongst Liberia's foremost legal minds. She chaired the UN Trusteeship Council, oversaw the independence of several African countries in the 60s, but above all, she has the distinction of being the second woman president of the UN General Assembly and first African woman back in the late 60s. In honoring her through the establishment of the center, we are honoring women in Africa and worldwide in leadership. That is what the center is about. And I happen to be the chair. Now, the motto of the center is peace is in our hands. And it is that motto that we have taken all over Africa, coming from Liberia, a country coming out of crisis, for whom peace has been critical and the sustainability. Now, with this background, my approach in this paper will proceed along the following lines. Our work, by the way, has been with facilitation by partners, some of whom are in this room, among whom is LPAC. Are you here? LPAC and others. Foremost, we look at the definition of what we mean by the rule of law. Secondly, we highlight some of what constituted UNMIL's investment in the rule of law in Liberia over the past 12 to 15 years. Thirdly, I then proceed to share with you how those on the outside of your profession sees the legal system, which will provide you elements for self-reflection. And here I will urge you to listen to the critique that may be forthcoming and learn from it, but do not take it personally. Rather, they should serve as the basis for improvement in the interest of greater effectiveness in the implementation and functioning of the rule of law in Liberia. Let me say here that what you will be hearing should not come as a surprise to you, since I recall hearing the president of the association sometime last year on the radio briefing the public on the results of your annual meeting held in Banga, where you were providing a summary of some of the outcome, including from the address of the Chief Justice. And I found it extremely educational and intellectually challenging, saying we need more of this. Fourthly, I then looked at the Liberian National Bar Association and identified the need for the association to speak out and help to inform Liberians on some of the critical issues facing the nation, on which it has tended to remain silent. There is, as a result, an intellectual vacuum on informed and well-reasoned issues that will prove critical to the future of our nation. We need to hear the voice of the brain trust of our nation, amongst which the Liberian National Bar Association. Every day we are hearing on the radio others speaking on constitutional issues of removal of the Negro clause, dual citizenship, land reform, amongst others. I will address that and say, where's the voice of the Liberian National Bar Association? We need to hear your voice. Finally, I intend to make some concrete recommendations for investing in the rule of law. That will mean some collaborative initiatives between the LNBA, the Louis Arthur Grimes School of Law, and the Angie Brooks Center. These will be initiatives that are expected to respond to some of the lacuna mentioned in the section on the outsiders' public views of our legal system, and will build on and piggyback on our recent collaboration with the association on the Talking Bus project with the support of USAID LPAC project, and invite the law school to participate in these as part of continuing legal education, the objective of which would be to capacitate the public itself in playing its role as regards the rule of law. Definition of the rule of law. What do we mean by the rule of law? In defining the rule of law, I first begin by extracting from a recent speech, not yet released, by Mrs. Sandy Okoro, Senior Vice President and General Counsel of the World Bank at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, made on March 22nd this year. The rule of law, she says, is a broad concept. It is best characterized by a system whereby there is a basic public understanding of laws and regulations. Second, laws and regulations are applied equally to all. The state is also subject to the rules and laws. Many also, and I'm quoting an extract from her, many also see the rule of law as a way for people to protect their fundamental rights, without which the cycle of poverty and disempowerment will continue. In concrete terms, rule of law can protect against discrimination, provide individuals with a right to a fair trial, and secure their status as being equals under the law. She argues further that the rule of law can establish an important foundation for a country's development. She concludes with her firm belief that legal and governance reform rooted in the rule of law is essential for sustainable development, and specifically for the empowerment of poor people and the betterment of their lives. And again, coming back to our own continent, we may refer to the position in the Abuja Declaration on Law, Justice, and Development, adopted in February 2003 by African Chief Justices, Ministers of Justice, and academia, which proclaims that the rule of law, justice, respect for fundamental rights, and development are inextricably linked. Or again, from the introduction to the African Development Bank Law for Development Review, Volume 1, the editor-in-chief, none other than our own Liberian Counselor at Law, Councillor Seward Cooper, which stated the following: for us, the nexus between law and development is clear. In the absence of the rule of law, chaos exists. The lack of adequate justice breeds injustice, while injustice foments discontent. Discontent foments revolt, and the product of revolt is unpredictable. Development does not occur in chaotic or unpredictable setting, but thrives in secure, predictable environments. Hence, the investment in the rule of law being the sine qua non for sustainable peace and development. The above reflects a number of essential elements constituting the rule of law. A set of rules generally agreed. These rules, according to Councillor Cooper, must be broadly distributed to all within the body politic, such that the people will have notice of the rules, and the rules must then be fairly and equally applied to all persons. With such a perspective and understanding, can anyone have doubts that the rule of law is an essential condition, a thing that is absolutely necessary, which is what the definition of sine qua non for socio-political and economic development and sustainable peace in Mama Liberia, post-conflict society, whose basic fundamental institutions, morals, and systems have been thoroughly destroyed over more than 25 plus years, and where the horrendous task of rebuilding and reconstruction by the former government of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Vice President Yema Boakai over the past 12 years, with the support of UNMIL and the rest of the international community, as indicated above, and all, of course, and above all, the resilient Liberian people. Sometimes you wonder where we come from. You can't quite believe we are still here, and we did it. But we did it. We did it. And many times I tell you, and I'm sure many of you can't believe it, because many times myself I want to cry and give up. But you know what? We can't give up, because we have to build on the sacrifices of the past. As per one of the major rabbis, he has said, you're not expected to finish the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. We cannot abandon the work, because if we abandon the work, this means we put in a slap in the face of all of those who work hard to preserve this nation and bring us to where we are. Now, highlights of UNMIL's investment in the rule of law during its service. Within its rule of law pillar, what did UNMIL do? It provided support to Liberia in the areas of justice, human rights, police, security sector, and correction services. It is also my understanding that efforts of UNMIL's rule of law pillar during the transition period that is underway with UNMIL's effective departure has focused in its areas of responsibility to ensure that support to the priority areas continue beyond its departure. I'd like to highlight two dimensions in particular, relevant to the Bar Association, what we're about. The pillar initiated the need for a continued presence of human rights support to Liberia, resulting in the UN Resident Coordinator among its transition initiatives having already formalized the establishment of the Office of Human Rights in Liberia and has sourced funding. Secondly, the pillar also initiated, and this is very exciting, a capacity building project for the Senate and the legislature on the oversight functions, particularly the Justice and Security Subcommittees through the International Security Sector Advisory Team. I understand further that a scoping mission was included during 2017, which UNDP's Rule of Law Joint Program agreed to continue with the said initiative after the departure. Why is this important? I'm stressing this because perhaps the association, the Bar Association, may consider and look for opportunities for association with this particular initiative and effort to strengthen these legislative functions. Association, you may want to look at prospects for association with this initiative of the UNDP, because it could be an inroad to the Bar Association being able to impact those bills that are coming out of the legislation. Those bills that are being formulated by the legislature could benefit from what you all are about as part of this process. Do not knock this. This is an entry point. I'm pointing out to you how you can impact and be a part of helping the legislature to put together some important regulations. Lastly, the rule of law has already published by the end of February lessons learned by all of the components of the pillar. This is in a series of briefing packages. Please take a look at it. Look at it, read it, and you will find entry points for the Bar Association with what the UN, what UNMIL is leaving behind for continuation in terms of building on. And this will basically give an opportunity for the Bar Association to be a part and parcel and help to import into some of what is coming up. Now, I would like to now provide a rather interesting illustration of yet another dimension of investment in the rule of law in Liberia from the past that demonstrates how such investment can enhance the operationalization of the rule of law in a very practical sense. This concerns an innovation from the then former Deputy Director of Police for CID Affairs, on or about the late 70s under the administration of Charles Ebu King. In his own words, the then deputy director would hold every Saturday an initiative called Coffee with the Deputy Director of Police for CID Affairs, and would invite individual judges and lawyers from the judiciary to speak to his officers at the CID about the rule of law and need for police to operate within these laws. This was part of the reform he introduced and that brought the staff into contact with another important aspect of the legal system. The first person there, gracious to accept, was Judge Edmund Shannon Walsall. What am I talking about? You had a judge having an opportunity to interact with the officers of the CID and discussing, and they were in turn learning about the essential issues of what the CID officers were about and the limits of their role and the rest of the system. This is part of what you call investing in the rule of law, being able to basically help evolve new perspectives and so on. This example illustrates the important role that training, continuing legal education can and must play in capacitating those in charge with administering the rule of law, if the rule of law is to be more than just remaining on the post. Now, the third area I said I would talk about is how do the public see the judiciary, the legals, the laws, and all of that. This is important because you need to know and understand how people out there feel and look at you, because action and correction must be taken. Otherwise, that definition I gave earlier about the rule of law means nothing. Here, we are benefiting from inputs from Councillor A.B. Clark, amongst others. Here, we want to highlight the views of the public. I referred to the Abuja Declaration on Law earlier. In looking at the perception of how outsiders view the legal system, one must ask about the reality in our Liberian society today. As regards A, timely adjudication of cases, B, use of the court's overcrowded dockets to prolong cases, corruption with the judicial sector, extent to which lawyers holding themselves up to higher standards and demanding the best, not settling for mediocrity and excusing ourselves as the Liberian way. The Liberian way is destroying our society. The Liberian way is destroying our society. We must not settle for second best. As long as we settle for second best, we are going nowhere. We are going nowhere and we will go nowhere. We talk and refer to Mauritius. We refer to Singapore. You know what Lee Kuan Yew said? Lee Kuan Yew said that the reason and how Singapore got to be where it was, he had to train and change the mindset of his people from third world to thinking first world. It's not as simple. Singapore is a small country, Mauritius is a small country, Liberia. No, you've got to change what and how we see things. Okay? We talk, but we've got to do. We've got to do. Ma Jeloma, the mother of the former president of the University of Liberia, May Antoinette Bryan's Chairman, what did she say? She said, Dr. Talk is all right, but Dr. Do is the man. Dr. Talk is all right, but Dr. Do is the man. This is Ma Jeloma, mother of Mary Antoinette Bryan's Chairman. Okay? Now, also we should highlight some of these, the outsiders' perception. What are some of the other ones? You have the pro bono volunteer Canadian lawyer, Jim Dubé, assigned to the Ministry of Justice under the International Senior Law Project over the period April to May 2007. In his article, Restructuring the Rule of Law in Liberia, the Main Law Review, Volume 6, 60, number 2, 208, of the University of Maine Law School, he says in that article that there can be no rule of law listen to this, there can be no rule of law without the commitment of those who administer those rules on behalf of the post-conflict state that has endured some 14 years of crisis. He argues that existing legal architecture and institutions in a post-conflict state may in fact matter less to the effectiveness of operation of the rule of law than does the character of the people who run the legal system. Are we hearing what he's saying? As such, he concludes that if the judges and lawyers who operate the legal system are not generally committed to the rules of law, then no new laws to address perceived problems will serve very little use. Next, there is the urgent need for consolidation of the dual legal system of customary and statutory law that operates here. We are not the only country. Might Liberia, in fact, benefit from lessons of how our sister African countries are managing this? Might our position and participation at the ECOWAS Court afford us an opportunity to tap into how such a problematic is being addressed? Yet another issue that those outside are looking at, the extraordinary backlog of cases. Liberia is not the only country experiencing this. When are we going to take concrete action, instead of just saying the backlog, for God's sake, let's do something about it. To remedy instead of simply complaining and stating this reality. Why do we not take meaningful steps to institute alternative dispute resolution, ADR mechanism modality as an integral part of our legal system, as is the case in our neighboring countries, Ghana, Nigeria. Now, I'm aware that elements of ADR mediation aspect does indeed operate in that commercial-like cases, like the mediation. But I am talking about a serious need, honorable lawyers, of our legal system to incorporate ADR into it. I believe it will positively impact the extraordinary challenges of the backlog of case laws. Right? Introduce ADR meaningfully. Let it be part and parcel of approaches to solve our problem. Yet again, the long delay of handing down of decisions, notwithstanding cases attended to by the court system. At the Supreme Court level, decisions, opinions in cases heard some 2 or 3 years ago, oftentimes have yet to be handed down. I am not talking about the recent situation of where we had the legislative elections and all of that, that naturally and understandably had to put certain things aside. I'm not talking about that. That is understood. I'm not referring to that. Those delays are clear. But that was a result of special circumstances. Complaints of these are real and serious, and something needs to be done. People on the outside are saying no. And I can tell you that I have had personal experience with this. My family are certain, and my own and my personal experience of this, which is really, I can't understand it. The famous Akerele versus Richards family case, heard some 3 years ago, and for which Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice in Chamber, ruled in our favor. Until today, I can't hear about it, and come on. This is for someone like me with access. What about those who do not have access? What about those who do not have access? I have access at the highest level. I have met several times with the Chief Justice. I have met with Madam President. 3, 4 years, no action? As I said, it's not only that issue. What about those who do not have access? They will take 10 years? What is happening? Honorable Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, you know what I'm talking about. And Honorable Associate Justice, I know you were Justice in Chamber, had to recluse yourself, but come on. Associate Justice of the Supreme Court rules on an issue, and it takes 3-4 years to attend. Why? Then one has other instances where there are deficiencies at the level of one's own lawyers, which are tantamount to malfeasance, a lack of adequate attention to the client's interests, leaving the clients feeling helpless and at their whim with no recourse. So the public, the client, needs to know if there are any legal remedies or mechanism to protect their interests. Here again, I have been personally victimized in a case that went to the Supreme Court, excellently attended by the Supreme Court by my lawyers. 1 whole year since it was attended, I can't even see a year from my lawyers. What recourse? What recourse does the client have when your lawyer is acting like I don't know what? No, we need to know. We need to know. These are some of the lapses and lacunae that people feel. Okay? Supreme Court attended a case excellently. My lawyer have not seen him or them since May 11 when it was attended. Come on, is there any recourse that the client has against the lawyers when the lawyers don't perform? We need to know. Yes, but we don't know. This is where, if the Liberian Bar Association, you are here in my next area, could help with legal education discussions so the public can know. The public needs to know what to do, where to go. We need advice. Okay? These are just a few of 41 years in the street. It is necessary for the profession to listen and take some concrete action and provide remedies in the interest of society. Here again, recall the earlier rendition of the elements, components of the rule of law. Possible solutions, read the backlog. Here is some concrete proposal. LPAC, read the backlog. Can we not see how to draw upon Liberian legal expertise in the diaspora? Could one not, through the USAID LPAC and the follow-up to all that UNMIL has done in the area of rule of law, develop a program along the lines of the top 10? Top 10 is the UNDP use of expatriate nationals in the country, use of expatriate nationals expertise of the UNDP that would make available such Liberian legal expertise overseas to be available, to come here and work with you on a certain limited period to assist with the backlog. This is how you make the link between development and the rule of law, and it is possible. LPAC, let's look into it, together with the Liberian Bar Association and the UNDP and the resident coordinator. Certainly, if we were to operationalize seriously ADR mechanism, again, one would have a volunteer corps of Liberian lawyers, such as the US Canadian Senior Executive Service Corps. Utilize our expertise. Fourthly, this brings me now to the fourth dimension that I mentioned I would like to tackle, that concerns certain critical issues in the nation that one needs to hear the voice of the people in the black gown. The voice of the National Bar Association on issues on which the bar has been silent as regards helping to inform and educate. Listen to what I'm saying. Inform and educate the public in order for us, to be properly informed, to make decisions based on facts, on knowledge, and not a lot of hearsay and a lot of talk. What do I have in mind? There are critical and timely issues that everyone but the Liberian National Bar Association is being heard talking about. Issues that will impact the future of our nation, such as the citizenship issue and the Negro Clause removal, as well as the Land Rights Bill and land reform. One is looking for informed guidance from one of what constitutes an important pillar of our society, of the brain trust of Mama Liberia. All of you are part of the brain trust. You cannot sit here and not say anything. You cannot not help us. We need to be helped. Everybody is talking about issues they don't know about, and the uneducated and uninformed are being influenced. We need to be influenced by you all. That is your role. And if you don't do it, you are reneging on your responsibility. You are reneging on your responsibility. One is looking for informed guidance. Mama Liberia, what are the pros and cons? We need some informed guidance to assist the public better understand the imperatives involved. For example, the Land Rights Bill. I recently learned that there is a clause in it to reduce the period of adverse possession on land ownership from 20 years, which exists right now, which I learned in law school, to 7 years. In whose interest? No, informed, we need to be informed. You need to educate and help us to understand. How is this possible? Based on whose interest? When we all know that the people have had to flee the nation to preserve their life, and so they've been out of the country. They want to come back to the country, so you want to say, oh no, sorry, yeah? And no, it's not good enough. This is not acceptable, and the public needs to understand. Liberian National Bar Association, you cannot be silent. Yet another issue concerning the citizenship issue and the removal of the Negro clause. Why are these two issues combined in one bill? They should not be in the same bill. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that the Negro clause is a constitutional issue. The Negro clause is a constitutional issue. The issue of Liberians born out, and continue, it's not constitutional. I'm not a lawyer, but come on, you all know it. Tell us, let us hear from you. We need to be educated, we need to be properly informed. The issue of citizenship and children of Liberian born overseas should not be, it's not a constitutional issue, should not be in the same bill. You need to break that bill down. You are confusing people. You are confusing people, the legislature, come on. You have to inform people so people can know. Moreover, this issue of removal of the Negro clause, in the interest of development, it has to be looked at carefully. Why a rush? Liberians are disempowered in our own country. The removal of the clause must be done with sufficient protection of the interests of our people. Now, I know our people, I know you're talking against President Weir. Y'all listen carefully. I said it must be done with sufficient protection of the interests of our people, and sufficient time must be allowed to study it and our various issues and to be considered. We need guidance. The Liberian needs to speak out. The president needs to be properly advised and provided sufficient information on the dimension of the issue. You lawyers, Liberian National Bar Association, don't just sit here and talk quietly. We need to advise our leaders. For example, I will tell you, I have severe reservation about the implementation of Treasury. However, at this point in time, y'all listen to me properly. When y'all put it in the papers, I said at this point in time, I think it is premature. I think we need considered time to look at it, to look at the various dimensions, and our president needs to be properly advised. We must have sufficient considerations of the various dimensions. I'm not saying that I want the Bar Association to say one or the other. I'm not saying that. I am saying that the Bar Association needs to help us, the public, on the arguments. Let us not rush, and above all, let us separate the issues in the bill. Negro clause, one different, you take it out. You know it's not correct. You all know it's not correct.
We know.
So what are we scared of?
Scared to talk.
You can't be scared to talk. That time is behind us. You know, it's not good enough. It is not good enough. People have died. Now, proposals for collaboration between the Bar Association and ABIC. I propose that as we have collaborated recently on the talking bus as part of the electoral process, for which we are most grateful, we worked together with the Bar Association and we went on what we call a talking bus of Angie Rose. We went throughout the country to explain to the people in layman's language what the decision of the Supreme Court was, what it meant. Extraordinary. Please give a hand to LPAC for supporting that. Now, I'm proposing that perhaps might we consider a weekly hour radio show in standard English and subsequently translated into various dialects with the Bar Association and Angie Brooks, such that the public is receiving well-reasoned pros and cons and appreciation of some of these issues that will impact our nation. In other words, we did the talking bus for that. Why don't we do a weekly radio show on some of these issues that people can be informed of, upholding the rule of law, the imperatives of sustaining this. Also in concert with the law school and the Liberian National Bar Association, might consideration be given, Dean, to a certificate course in essentials of the law for the general public. I recall 2 years ago when I launched my book at the school, I mentioned this. Let's do something about it. Let's not just talk and leave things sitting down. Let's start collaborating. All of this is what you're proposing continuous investment in the rule of law. There's continuing legal education, not limited to lawyers, but to people like me. I need some education. Not so? As a result, we'll have an informed and better educated public to know how to vote, to apply the rights. Right now, the public is not informed, is not educated. By so doing, the Liberian National Bar Association will essentially be participating. Through such an approach, the legal profession will essentially be investing in building confidence in yourselves, so that the feeling out there about you all will disappear, will improve. This is how you build confidence in the legal system. This responds to some of what I said earlier. Intellectual debates are necessary. The public needs education on adequate land reform, adequate criminal law, use of the penal law versus civil. As I draw to a close, I would like to commend the Dean of the Law School for the relaunch of the Law School Journal late last year. That is the intellectual thing that has been missing. My compliments. I think the National Bar Association, you all also need to have a law review. Major contribution to the vacuum in intellectual debate. In that regard, may I also suggest, listen, President Trump is talking about the tariffs. Who is looking at what the implications will be on Liberia? We need to be looking at it seriously right now. What will be the implications of Trump tariffs on Liberia? Your commercial law, the law school, Bar Association, you need to do something. Back in 2009, as a member of cabinet, I proposed that we start looking at all the implications of when the TPS disappears. We've got 1 more year extension. Let us start looking at what we're going to do about it. You must be part of it. Problems, difficulties, Liberian lawyers in the diaspora have experienced. They're having trouble getting accredited. Why? Something must be done. Something must be done. Closing remarks. I want to take you all back to the case of the late former Minister of Justice, Jenkins Scott, ipso facto dean of the bar. He died broke. And when he had nowhere else to go, where did he go? He went to the Temple of Justice in November 2010. He turned to the courts. He said, "This is my home, and that's why I'm here." What am I saying? He may have been ill and disheveled, but when he was in trouble and in need of assistance, he went to the courts and called it my house. And that is what everyone does. We go to the courts when we are in need. As such, the issue at bay is how can lawyers or judicial actors enhance the administering of justice. I have tried to provide some pointers and guidance through continuous investment in the rule of law, the sine qua non for sustainable peace and development. Indeed, for upholding the Lone Star, Mama Liberia. Here I would like you to bear with me as I read an extract from Dr. Romeo Horden, year 2000 oration for July 26th. Our Lone Star at the year 2000. From 1847 to 1999, our Lone Star, the Republic of Liberia, has remained afloat, sometimes at full staff, on occasions the storms of nationhood had been the staff to break, had bent the staff to the breaking point, but never broken, never tossed to the ground. We have had our birth and growing pains, our Camelot days, and recently our nightmare. But the Lone Star still flies over land and over sea. You have a role, significant role, to play in upholding the Lone Star. From the day our Lone Star first hoisted, most of the time, it stood alone and lonely. May I ask you to stand and raise your voices and join me in singing the refrain of the Lone Star Forever. Lone Star forever, the Lone Star forever, oh Lord, may it flow over land, over sea, decided forever, uphold it forever, oh shout for the Lord.